There's a moment that happens to most of us eventually, usually late at night, usually after a conversation that didn't go the way we hoped, or after someone says something that hits a nerve a little harder than it probably should. And suddenly we're lying in bed thinking, why did that bother me so much? Because the truth is, sometimes the things that irritate us the most about other people are quietly pointing back to something inside ourselves, something we'd rather not look at. And if that sentence made you slightly uncomfortable, good, you're in the right place. Because today on the Better Page, we're talking about shadow work. Not the dramatic, mystical version you might see floating around the internet, no candles required, and no emotional excavation that leaves you sobbing on the floor. Just a gentle, honest look at the parts of ourselves we tend to hide, even from our own journals. The traits that we tuck away, the reactions that we justify, the patterns we pretend we don't notice. Because here's the thing no one tells you when you start a self-growth journey. You don't just discover your strengths. You also meet parts of yourself that, well, need a little editing. And oddly enough, that's where the real clarity lives. So if you've ever wondered why certain people trigger you instantly, why the same relationship patterns keep showing up in new outfits, or why you sometimes act in ways that don't quite match the person you believe yourself to be, stay with me. Because by the end of this episode, you'll have a much clearer picture of your hidden traits, and more importantly, what they might be trying to teach you. I used to think personal growth meant becoming a better version of myself, more patient, more evolved, more emotionally mature, which in theory sounded wonderful. In reality, it mostly meant trying very hard not to admit when I was being petty, or jealous, or quietly competitive, or, let's be honest, just a little bit dramatic. Because somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that growth means eliminating our flaws. But the truth is far less polished than that. Growth isn't about pretending those traits don't exist. It's about recognizing them before they start running the show. You see, we all have a shadow, not in a scary way, just in a very human way. It's the part of us that holds the emotions we weren't encouraged to express, the traits we learned were unattractive, the reactions we decided were unacceptable. So we hide them, we smooth them over, we tell ourselves that's not really me. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. It shows up in subtler ways. Like the friend who insists she doesn't care about attention, but secretly feels hurt when she's overlooked. Or the woman who prides herself on being easygoing, but quietly resents everyone she never sets boundaries with. Or the person who says they're just honest, when sometimes honesty is simply wearing the outfit of criticism. And the fascinating thing about shadow traits, they often reveal themselves through our reactions to other people. The coworker who annoys you instantly, the friend whose confidence feels strangely irritating, the influencer who seems perfectly happy and somehow that makes you uncomfortable. And suddenly we think, why does she bother me so much? But if we're honest, sometimes the better question is, what part of me feels threatened by her? Because our strongest emotional reactions usually carry a message. Not about the other person, but about ourselves. Now, before you panic and assume this means you're secretly a terrible person, let me reassure you, shadow work isn't about judging yourself. It's about understanding yourself. It's realizing that every trait, good or bad, exists on a spectrum. Confidence can become arrogance. Kindness can become people-pleasing. Ambition can become comparison. And recognizing where we land on that spectrum gives us the power to shift, which, if you ask me, is far more empowering than pretending we're perfectly self-aware. So before we go any further, let's open our journals. Or if you're out walking, making coffee, or driving somewhere with this playing in the background, simply carry these questions with you today. Let them gently interrupt your usual thought patterns. Let them reveal something new. Because today's journaling isn't about fixing yourself. It's about meeting yourself honestly. What traits in other people trigger a strong emotional reaction in me? And what might those reactions reveal about parts of myself I've ignored or minimized? What personality traits do I pride myself on the most? Where might those traits show up in an unhealthy way when I'm stressed, insecure, or overwhelmed? Think about a recent conflict or moment where you reacted more strongly than expected. What emotion might have been sitting underneath that reaction? If I stopped judging one hidden trait within myself and instead tried to understand it, what might that trait actually be asking for? If something in today's conversation made you pause, if one of those prompts made you slightly uncomfortable, or if you suddenly realize a pattern you hadn't noticed before, save this video. Come back to these questions when you need clarity. And if you feel like sharing, comment the word shadow. Just that one word. It's a small way of saying I'm willing to look a little deeper. And if today's reflection gave you something meaningful to think about, you already know. There's always another page waiting, and around here we call that the better page.